Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with thelibertybeacon.com. And I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show!
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, Season 1, Episode 50. I'm actually recording now to present to you a pre-intro segment to the show you're about to see. I feel this is necessary that I provide an upfront warning and or disclaimer. Some of what you're about to hear is harsh in tone and language that may upset. Now, I'm not talking about curse words here, but many of you know I co-host with Michael Gardner, a.k.a. Savaged, who will be joining the show, and we'll go into the reasons why, as opposed to this being a Wednesday guest show drop. This is a regular Saturday drop episode. At any rate, laughing. At any rate, when I co-host with Savaged, we indeed get heated and can and will sometimes swear on the unfiltered, unvarnished, raw, savaged, unfiltered show. Well, again, no swearing in this episode, but as with always, when Michael Gardner, a.k.a. Savaged, and I get together, we get a little more loose with some of the words we might otherwise use. I would prefer used on the show. So just wanted to give the disclaimer, warning, could be some upsetting language and tone in this show. This is indeed a PG-13 show, if you will. And I have printed out here the show notes, the rough draft of the show notes that I've written to include with the show drop. I'm going to read those also just to give you an idea of what's coming, and you can decide whether to continue or not. The show, Season 1, Episode 50, Slaves to State. Michael Gardner, a.k.a. Savaged, of Savaged Unfiltered, joins as we hash out slaves to state, rather willing slaves to state versus tyrannically imposed upon slavery. Biblical helping those unable, and if you see on behind the scenes video here, you're seeing me put in the air quotes, unable versus those, quote, unwilling, unquote, cons and scammers, etc., to bother to, in our meritocracy, to earn their own way, instead rather leech off others. Those with actual mental retardation, a term we've fully accepted for a long time, is still technically medically correct. So let me say that again. Those with actual mental retardation, not their fault, a medical condition, versus those who, again, are quote unquote capable, but feign diminished capacity, either mental or physical, sometimes both, incapacity, and not appreciate but demand handouts and special in violation of equal protections, dispensation, otherwise to con, scam others, and abuse our charitable, be our brother's keeper, Christian personal responsibility, not communist government's edict, commandment, again, must be contextualized with biblical unable versus unwilling scriptures. Nature, human nature, discussion of human nature and how really a small but vocal and able to consolidate power via those willing to cater to them are Cloward and Piven style, tearing down America and lacking any foresight to understand. I lost my place. Let me blah 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 blah. Cloward and Piven style, tearing down America, and once bankrupt, there will be nothing for no one. But their short-sightedness knows no bounds. They only care about their next immediate handout, how they continue to be lazy, willing to just get by as long as it is always at someone else's expense, them willing to expend more energy, more time and energy, conning others out of money than it would take them to actually go get a real job and earn a living, as well as the other still forms of demo KKK rats. They have been, still are, the party of slavery, modern slavery, as Jared Howe rightly mentioned in past, and we will give his quote, and we cover herein. At any rate, yes, this is going to be an ongoing running gag. And I've jokingly said to others, maybe I should rebrand the show from ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast to At Any Rate Podcast. I say that jokingly, but actually, At Any Rate would be a good name for a podcast. So I have no doubt somebody will steal that idea from me now. At any rate, I just wanted to give you all this upfront consideration so that you can decide maybe this is a little outside the norms of Christitutionalist politics, niceness, it's while still dealing in reality, of course, here, a bit more harsh than normal. So I fully understand and accept if maybe you don't want to proceed. I hope, of course, the majority of you will. Just wanted you to know this all up front. Take care. God bless. And as Graham Norton used to say, he doesn't say it anymore. He says, let's get some guests on. Well, I only do the guest thing usually on midweek Wednesday drops now, but Graham Norton used to say, let's get on with the show. So, indeed, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Christitutionalist Politics, Season 1, Episode 50, Slaves to State. It really should be willing slaves to state. There is a difference. We're not going to talk about those, the tyrannical government putting its boot on people and making them slaves. We're here to talk about the idiots who willingly give up their freedoms and want to be slaves to the state. And if you're looking at BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, or YouTube video behind the scenes, you see I have a guest with me. Normally, I've shifted. Guests come on Wednesday, but Savaged is going to be on with me today for a regular Saturday show because Slaves to State came out of one of his shows. By the time this airs, it will be weeks ago now, and his Twitter feed where you go ahead and tell them how you shared a snippet from your show, which led to my saying slaves to state and hence this show.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi, my name is Ed Bondarenka, and I host Your American Heritage on Saturdays at 2 in the afternoon on this station. Your American Heritage is a show about the struggle we find ourselves in and how to react to it in the light of our biblical and American heritage. Listen to it while you're working around the house, the garage, cleaning the guns, walking the dog, driving, or just lazing around. Join me at 2 o'clock Saturdays here on Wham Radio, 1600 AM, 92.7 FM.
God bless America.
Yeah, I think what Joe's talking about on the show here, folks, is there was a clip I shared, on my X account, Twitter, or like Joe likes to refer it as Twatter. All right, I mean, we shared that, and it kind of tied into what we're talking about here, with a previous episode that we had done. So it's kind of interesting on how that on some of the stuff ties into, what you talk about, right? Like some of the content, right? Like, will like piggyback off of other episodes, not on purpose, but it just, it has a convenience somewhere there. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of interesting. And, Joe had said to me off the air, he was like, did you do that on purpose? I'm like, no, I didn't do that on purpose. It just kind of snuck in there, like conveniently,
Yeah,
But,
it's
yeah.
like the old A-Team show, Hannibal. I love it when a plan comes together, right? I
No.
mean, you just happened to, it was like divine intervention. You released that, it led to a discussion, which then led to me coining the slaves to state term, and voila, light bulb. That's a great idea for this show and perfect. And again, not enforced slavery, but like what part of it was what that brought this up was the student loan debt transfer. You
Mm.
know, I share a meme all the time. I just did earlier. You'll see it in your feed that free cheese kills, right? There's a reason why the mice don't understand why the cheese is free. It's the same with socialism. Morons that don't understand there really is no such thing as free, you retards. We all pay in some way, shape, or form, if not now, later.
Yeah. Yeah, we all pay. I mean, there's a saying that maybe some of our grandparents or great grandparents used back in the day, you reap what you sow, and I live by those terminology words all the time. I mean, it's gotten me through life on a successful note, and it's got me through a point where I had to like bound through struggles and stuff earlier in my 20s, kind of finding who I was and my voice, and especially behind this microphone. So like if you do the things negatively, well, you're going to get a negative result, right? If you do things positively, you're going to get a positive result. And I find that today very interesting because like you said, you used the term retards and stuff, and I mean, we're not trying to say that rude, but I mean, some of what you see today, people are just they're out of control with their wording. And then like a show that I just got into now, like a couple months ago now with this episode, I mean, it's like they're expecting things, as like that participation trophy, right? They're expecting things in return, and they're not realizing or understanding that the actions that they commit are the ending result of what's going to happen to them. To me, I understand what they're doing, but to them, I don't think, Joe, that they understand any of that. Like there's some kind
Uh-oh.
of chemical imbalance in their head where it's not registering.
Yeah,
And you see that all the time.
yeah, you
You know?
froze. You froze again there for a second. I don't know what's going on with your system today, but at any rate, and I apologize. I'm not politically
Yeah.
correct, or as I call it, pathetical corruptness. And when
Mm.
I say the word retard, I apologize
if it offends some. And let me be clear and say up front, I know somebody who has a child that was born with mental retardation issues, and we love that now adult to death, but who cannot live on his own because he's just not capable. I'm not talking about that. That isn't that person's fault. That, something happened, something went wrong. They're just not all there. They're just not capable. Versus a leftard who purposefully chooses to remain ignorant of everything. They're capable of learning. They absolutely refuse to learn. So I just want to make that clarification because, of course, I know that will upset some people. I'm not apologizing for using the word. I have no problem using the word. I am indeed sorry if that upsets you, because, again, I know somebody like that. It's not about them. It's the people who choose to be stupid and never learn anything. And like this being a Christian show, go back to Jesus said, the poor will always be among you. That's because of human nature. The Bible also says why we're to engage in charity, to be our brother's keeper, to help widows and orphans. It also goes on to say to help those who cannot help themselves, versus why you don't have an unconstitutional federal welfare state that can't distinguish between those who are unable, those who are unwilling to help themselves. And that's what this
Joe,
show is about. Those who are unwilling to help themselves.
Joe, I think the disconnect of what you're seeing in this country is people that are very uninformed. I mean, obviously that's a clear point of what we're discussing, right? Most of these people are just they're ill-minded. They're so manipulated. They're so brainwashed. They're so flustered on everything in this country, right? They have to have center of attention. They have to have all this stuff. And this is one of the reasons why, I decided to go into, writing a second book, with some of my other book that came out with America's Political Warfare.
And we'll be sure to cover your books at the end of the show. And
but I just wanted to throw that in there. Yeah.
And I will, of course, have you back for a Wednesday discussion drop when I generally drop my guest shows for when the book actually does drop. But the unable versus the unwilling. I mean, look out there. We all know people like that. They spend more time trying to con others out of money than it would take the energy for them to actually get a real job and earn a living. No, they'd rather beg or con or scam, live off the system, which again,
and see, that's okay with them. Like they constantly they don't think that there's nothing wrong with that. You mentioned the word scam. You mentioned the word con, right? That in today's society, if you talk to most of these people that are committing to this, they think that's absolutely acceptable behavior in their mindsets. Like, to go online, and especially these scam bots, right? To fake with promotional type of pushes. Well, if you pay me such and such, I can give you such and such subs, and I can give you higher reach. And this, I mean, to me, that's like, that sounds wonderful. But in reality, how the hell is it possible?
Yeah, they can't guarantee that stuff, right? Exactly. But again, people take advantage of other people if they can. And again, it would be less effort to actually just work a regular job, but they can't do that. They're just deficient in that way. And like again, unwilling, unable people. There's so many open jobs out there. Like, since this goes back to X, Silent Majority, whom we interact with on Twitter, X, had an anecdotal tweet that I responded to him with the other day. But when countless numbers of people see it and share the stories, it's not anecdotal anymore. It's obvious. It's happening. It's a trend. And he was saying a business owner he knows keeps running out of Coke at his place. And it's because Coke can't keep up with the deliveries. Instead of getting a delivery once a week, he's getting it every other week. So he's running out of product. It isn't a supply issue in that there isn't enough Coca-Cola. It is an issue that they don't have enough drivers to deliver it.
It's a workforce issue.
Won't work. They won't work.
It's a workforce issue. I mean, you see that all over the board. I mean, big supply chain companies. I mean, they were experiencing some of those issues that you're mentioning, Joe, through the COVID era. I mean, literally scratching trying to keep up with the workforce and the workload for that matter. I look at big box giant chains like Amazon and Walmart and Publix, where I live here in Florida. Some of those fulfillment centers, distribution centers, they were hungry for workers because, they were pushing that COVID scare tactic, fear-mongering agenda, and people were like, well, I have COVID. Okay, well, just call out and, you can, request a form to get the COVID release and, COVID pay and everything. People were doing it left and right, because the government was pushing it. CDC was pushing it. And look what it was doing. It was crippling their damn companies, and I mean, you still see this to this day. It gets carried over, to this day in 2024, where people just don't want to work. They want to sit home. They want to make TikTok videos. They want to if it's not the TikTok videos, they want to continue going on the government and seeing if they can get grants and this and that. Like, people are just, the work ethic is just not there. You're absolutely right, Joe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
And to be fair, as I always am, it's mainly the left. But again, to be fair, Trump did sign in a COVID relief package. The left is doing it more and more on steroids. The left has always done it's the old adage, teach a man to fish and he'll never go hungry again. Give a man a fish and he'll vote for you. You create a dependent. And that's, again, the whole slaves to state, willing slaves to state. And I forget, several of our founders said it, right? Once people realize they can vote largesse from the Treasury, the Republic is doomed. And that's why we're so many trillions in debt. People decided, I could just vote for Democrats who will keep giving me handouts. More and more and more handouts. And those handouts have gotten worse and worse to the point where indeed they are comfortable sitting on their couch 24/7, just barely getting by. And again, goes back to what Jesus said. Poor will always be among you. There will always be lazy people.
And a lot of these people, they'll go into, and I hate to chime in, but, you're making a good point. Like, a lot of these people will continue to vote, for that incompetent leader or that president or that senator or that congressman. And these are some of the people that are constantly, Joe, they're crying out, man. They're like, well, our government's not doing enough. Our senators are not doing enough. Our congressional leaders are not representing us accurately. Well, if you're crying out so much, why do you continue to put them in office? Why do you continue to vote for that same person over and over and over? They're doing it to themselves. Joe.
Some of them are. The big issue here is back to that quote, once people discover they can vote themselves largesse from the Treasury. The problem is there's a whole lot of voters, and this show discusses it. 30 to 50 million Christians aren't even registered to vote, let alone bother to vote. So the problem is the majority isn't really voting. The minority is the majority casting the votes on election day and voting themselves the largest.
And it's hurting the other side of the base. I mean, people are like looking and like, well, that's not what we wanted. We didn't vote that. We didn't support that. Well, I mean, your other so to speak of your base of the Republican or the Democratic Party, however, whatever side it is, either or, they just kind of screwed you over. I mean, like you just said, the majority, will always win over the less fortunate towards the majority, right? If I have my words correct, but you're making good points. Like this is what you're seeing in America. Like the actual majority of that movement or that bill or that anything that's on the ballot, like if you're going to get a certain percentage that's going to support that and vote for that, well, more or less that's going to get passed. And that's gonna get passed to the next level. And then when you have other people are like, well, damn it, no, we didn't support that. And you get those people are constantly, trying to chase that. It's kind of like a merry-go-round effect. It's just like nothing never gets accomplished that way, I think.
And I talk about all the time on the show, Republicans aren't perfect. I talk about the left all the time, but the deep state actors are CINOs, rhinos, and fascocrats. It's not like all Republicans are great. They're not. I've said that over and over. But to these leftists, CINOs and rhinos are as much leftists as fascocrats are, even if they got an R by their name. Cloward and Piven, for those who don't know, the idea of bankrupting America through the welfare state. Hey, morons. If America goes bankrupt, that doesn't mean you get a socialist government, which then means more money for you. It means bankrupt. It means there's no money for anything, for anyone, for any reason, constitutional or not. So this moronic Cloward and Piven concept that, hey, I'll actually get more if I help bankrupt the country is because why they don't teach economics in school. People are stupid.
They're stupid, they're manipulated, and they're brainwashed. Exactly. This goes back to what we were discussing, on your show just earlier before here as we were opening it up. And just recently, like they continue to vote that. They continue to support that. They continue to do this and do that and do this and do that. But then again, when you go to question them saying, what does the welfare system provide you more than actually working for a living, having a good, steady paying job that can not only provide for your family, your children, and possibly your grandchildren after that, give you a great pension plan if the company does provide that, overtime, health insurance, all that great stuff that comes along with having that great paying job, steady job, 40 hours a week, sometimes more. What is the welfare system? What can the welfare system provide you more than what I just labeled?
Yeah.
I'll wait. And they can never answer that. But yet again, Joe, they continue to vote for that welfare system over and over and over. And then when you just had Donald Trump a few years ago, listen, guys, I'm not a Trump cultist, though, but I do support a lot of his messages when said, I will provide good jobs. The left kind of just went like, no, we can't have that. We got to have welfare. And then like just push that welfare back into the border.
And welfare is fine as a states' right issue. That goes back to the Bible and charity. Those close to the problem know the difference between those unable and those unwilling. We help those who are unable. If you're unwilling, too bad. You're on your own. That's the way it's supposed to be. They can answer your question, Savaged, They won't, because the answer is welfare lets me be lazy.
Yeah, they don't want to accept the actual factual background of the other part of that discussion, which is a job. Well, then they'll go into this stupid rhetoric with saying, well, if I work for the man, I'm enslaved. I'm enslaved to the system. I'm enslaved. Well, you're still enslaved to the system, you moron, if you collect welfare, because the government is looking at you as like a little guinea pig and I'm just gonna give him a little water. You know, he looks a little thirsty. Get your mouth near the water, right? And just sip a little bit. You know, I'd rather sip as much as I want from a regular job, right? Buying the stuff that I want that will benefit me than going to the government and only giving me what the government wants to give me.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how the leftist brain or the mindset works in that aspect. I really don't.
Unfortunately, again, it's human nature. It's always been here. And why, again, Jesus said, the poor will always be among you. There are people who want to just skate and coast and are happy having the bare minimum at someone else's expense. And that is, of course, the whole problem. The willing slaves to the state we're talking here, devoid of personal responsibility and any understanding that that gravy train at some point is going to come to an end. Atlas is going to shrug. America will go bankrupt, and there will be nothing for anyone.
Yeah, so it's happening. I mean, right before our eyes. I mean, you're right on that. Yeah.
I'm willing. In fact, at terrorstrikes.info, right? terrorstrikes.info/charity. I have a whole list of charities I support, I recommend, I encourage engaging in charity to indeed help those unable versus those unwilling. We should do that.
We should, but we're not. We're not doing enough. We're not engaging enough, you know, and, you know, like we're allowing them to engage on us. And sadly, Joe, this is the truth. We're losing the war and they're winning. You know, this is why we're in the mess that we're in, because of radicalization in this country. And I'm not afraid to say that even on your show. We're seeing radicalization of politicians that are not only destroying, but crippling our nation and crippling our society and destroying our culture for future generations. Our children are going to hurt in this. That's who's going to hurt, our children, the next generation. Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up with another forms of slavery. The fascocrats, the demo KKK rats have always been the party of slavery. They still are today. Let me read a Jared Howe quote. Anything that requires the labor or property of other people is not a basic human right. That includes education, healthcare, food, internet access, especially housing, or anything else that involves an investment or capital and labor of others. To demand free goods, no such thing as free, and services from people who sacrifice time and capital to produce them is to demand that those people become your slaves. You don't have the right to enslave people for food or education or health care any more than plantation owners had the right to enslave people to pick cotton. The fascocrats are still the slave party. They say, oh, you must provide so-and-so something for free. That is slavery.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM is your conservative flamethrower. Weekdays, Steve Gruber starts things off at 6 a.m. Gruber gives his perspective on the issues of the day. At 9 a.m., Glenn Beck blazes the airwaves with his nationally syndicated program. From noon to 3, it's Dennis Prager. At 3 o'clock, it's Wham's own Tyrone X. On the Edge, Tyrone tells it exactly as he sees it. At 6, it's The Dana Show, your conservative alternative. At 8, don't miss Joe Pags. Weekends are filled with conservative talk as well. Fingers Malloy, Thomas LeDuc, The Abolitionists Roundtable, A Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick, Your American Heritage with Ed Bondarenka, Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, and Dick Kupke's Trigger Talk. You can even get links to Wham podcasts from Dave, Dick, and of course Tyrone, all from their pages on our website, whamradio.com. Keep it locked on Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM in southeastern Michigan, and whamradio.com anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that is slavery. However you look at it, it's slavery. But the left, they don't recognize that it's a chemical imbalance, and that chemical imbalance that we're referring here on the show, it's putting a mirror image on what America is becoming, and I don't like that mirror image. I don't like that reflection. When I look in the mirror every single day, folks, I see a mirror of a future America, and what it presents is not your liberties, your freedoms, and your pursuit of happiness. You know what it represents, Joe? It represents everything that a third world banana republic of dictating would present. That's what I see America right now, and I don't like it. I don't. But yet alone, you know who's at fault? It's not your politicians. Oh, what, Savage? No, it's not your politicians. It's your voters who put them there. It's we the people. You have to understand that. Like, we have the power in this nation to remove all of that. We do. We're not a parliamentary system where we can enact a special elections, right? And like that, but we can do something just as better, and it's called impeachment, folks. Get with your congressional leaders and inquire the impeachment. Become a delegate. Joe and I constantly talk about that, even on my show, when he's on my show sometimes. Become a delegate. I mean,
That's right.
What are you waiting for?
It's we the people. And people talk about the uniparty. No, if you don't like rhinos and CNOs running your part of the Republican Party, become a delegate. Go to the meetings. Go to the conventions. Be involved. Stop whining. We, the people, get off your butt. And like I said earlier and repeated many times on this show, 30 to 50 million Christians not even bothered to register to vote. Do not whine to me about what's going on if you refuse to bother to even register and vote. Because again, it isn't the majority of the country. It is just the majority that shows up on election day because you're too lazy to get involved, or you've got this Christian elitism. The Bible doesn't preach this. The Bible doesn't talk about the Jefferson separation of church and state. Jesus never said to not be involved in politics. We are to judge biblically and be involved. There's just not to be an official church of the United States like there's official Church of England. You are supposed to be involved. If you're not, look in your mirror. You are part of the problem. As Savage said, we the people. You are allowing that.
It's all in the Constitution of what Joe's referring to, guys. If you want to learn more, I mean, go to your local library, go to, Amazon, pick up a cheap version or a cheap copy of the Constitution. I mean, I carry it in my back pocket all the time, a little pocket version of it. I mean, it's good to have, and in cases where you need to protect your rights. It's all there in plain English. I mean, educate yourself. Stop being manipulated and brainwashed and misinformed by your government. Your government is doing this for you because they want you to be that guinea pig. They want you to be that little rat for them. I mean, when the I'm going to show PG here, guys, but when are you going to wake up and understand that the government is not your Uncle Jester or your Aunt Mally and going to take care of you and give you those nice little checks every Christmas or November, right? They're not there to do that. The government was not placed for that. The government was placed to uphold law and order and preserve the Constitution of the United States of America. It wasn't there to give you handouts and food stamps and welfare and Section 8 housing. Where that came into place is just gotten to a point where it's out of control, and now people depend on it more than ever because we became that welfare state of America, Joe, and it needs to stop. It really needs to.
And more politicians are catering those who want the handouts because they indeed will stay elected. In their mind, it's about power and control and their continued government paycheck. And I would encourage not only read the Constitution, but the Federalists and the Anti-Federalist papers. The Anti-Federalists warned at the very time the Constitution compromise was being signed that the left, even then, and they did, they went on to form the Federalist Party, which then immediately began undermining the Constitution to give themselves more power, more control. And it's today's fascia Federalists now versus even the Federalists back then. They weren't as bad then as they are now, but it is indeed still the same mindset. It's about who can I get dependent on me so that they'll vote for me so I can keep my government job. And
they're
with
in
that,
it for the long haul.
Well, I don't want to forget, I want to wrap us up, but so I don't forget, let's talk about your coming book, which actually by the time, this show will air June 1st. Your book, let's talk about your old one first.
I thought I heard something differently, something about Wednesday, but if you want me to air it now, I'll be happy to air it now.
No, this show will be a regular Saturday show drop, even with you as a guest, because of this special situation. It'll drop June 1st, and your new book comes in July. So mention your old book first.
Yeah, guys, I before I dabbled in, writing and everything, I was doing podcasting, talk radio, and I was doing a little then it was small production work for movie sets. Now I've dabbled into, an ongoing thing with movie sets here and there. But one of the reasons why I decided to write the first book, America's Political Warfare, Our Modern Civil War, is because of what you're seeing here in America, everything. And when I was writing it, people were judging me, saying, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're trying to create spin and narrative. Well, to those people, I'm going to say, who's laughing now, and who's right now and who's wrong, because everything in that book that I labeled America's Political Warfare, it is, to my own personal opinion, worse than our Civil War going back, because this not only shows and presents civil conflict, it also presents political conflict and political warfare and political division, because you're seeing it all over the place. You're seeing it on a political level. You're seeing it on a public level. You're seeing it on a corporate level. They're all like literally battling over each other for grand supremacy. And folks, when you get to a point in a country like that, it's dangerous. I wrote the book not to scare people, but to wake people up, to prevent this from happening on a long term. We don't want to be like a country, like countries in the Middle East, Joe, and for some of your listeners out there, we don't want to have ongoing conflict. Some of these countries have been fighting over for centuries and still are to this day. You don't want a nation like that. If you feel that warfare will solve the answers to what you're looking for, Well, I'm sorry. Then go over to that country and you could support that. But I don't want it here in America because I want a better future. That's why I wrote the book. Yeah.
It's like a Cold War. Your example. We are in a cold civil war, and if it gets to a hot civil war, we're really, really going to be in deep. And I mean, the way it stands now, with the leftist violence, and indeed, show season 1, episode 47. That will be a couple weeks ago by the time this airs, is called Continued Left-Wing Violence. They're already engaging in hostilities, actual violence, actual rioting, looting, burning, and in some cases, yes, murder. Yeah. So if it goes full blown, we're in trouble. But yeah,
and that's what led me to, writing the second book here as we close it up here on the show. Like the first book is basically a continuation to my book coming out next month here in July. When you go through all of that, you've now become of what I call a savaged America. A lot of people are like, well, why'd you use the term savage? Do you have to put it in there because of your personality name here on the show? No. It has nothing to do with that. It just kind of worked in its way perfectly, because our country is becoming a savaged America. And that's why I labeled it Through a Savaged America, because we went through the first bit of conflict through the political civil war of warfare, now going to a point of where our country is going through a savaged America agenda of what you're seeing: riots, protests, agendas, twisting of language, manipulation of voting sessions and elections, and all that. We cannot continue to go down that way, because if we are, then, my friends, we will become forever a savaged America, and we will lose our constitutional republic and become a third world nation. And you don't want that for your children. And that book will be coming out next month, July 4th. What a better day to air it and publish it and be available on our nation's independence. Because if you want your independence restored, folks, well, you need to push back against this radicalization you're seeing in the country.
You are absolutely right. That's spot on. The left likes to call themselves progressive. They're not. They're regressive. Exactly like you laid out. They want to take us back to like monarchy, communism, socialism, fascism. They're all the same left-wing stuff as a monarchy was. A small group of ruling elites tell you what you can and can't do, what you will and won't have. They're taking us away from the progressive nature that the U.S. Republic is, and granting you freedoms to pursue what you want, not what somebody dictates you must do. So they're not progressing us to anything. They are regressing us. And Savaged, or we got to give your real name here, Michael Gardner, because it isn't going to be by Savaged. It's going to say by Michael Gardner.
Yeah, sometimes, folks, I get so stuck in my my media personality of a character that I've, kind of evolved here over the course of 5 years doing this podcast. But, if you would like to know any more about, my first book that I just mentioned, you can search me on Amazon. The first book is available on Amazon. Only exclusive to Amazon. America's Political Warfare, Our Modern Civil War by Michael Gardner. You could search it there. I'm sure, Joe will be putting it in show notes so you can see it there, the show notes, production notes, as well as the second book. Now, it's going to be part of a catalog, guys, of a library. So all my books going forward, that's the better way of searching me. By Michael Gardner. And if it's not working there, guys, the website, it will be on the website in the near future. We will have a section there because our website's actually under construction. So it will be available. So
by the time this airs, that'll be all.
Of course.
You're talking about SavageDUnfiltered.com.
Yes, sir. Yeah. You go right to SavageDUnfiltered.com, and all of our content material, video clips, audio, all that stuff, merchandise will be all listed on the website. And I think that's about it. I mean, we have email addresses on there. If you want to know any more, you can just email me, Michael@SavageDUnfiltered.com. I'll be honored and privileged to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael Gardner, a.k.a. Savaged, host of Savaged Unfiltered, and thank you for having me still on quite a bit of shows again.
It's a big library, big library,
as a co-host. Forget all that early stuff before I came along. It's trash. Just a joke, people. Just a joke. Anyway, see you later, Michael. Take care.
Take it easy.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff. No fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help to grow the show.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.